To introduce our first presentation here at the Planet MicroCap Showcase Vegas 2024. I got Marco Fregenal from Fathom Holdings.
You do that even better than my family. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. I think we have about 30 minutes, so I'm going to spend about 15-20 minutes in the presentation, and then take your questions. So really quickly, what Fathom is a real estate platform, if you will. There are few things that make us unique in a sense compared to some other companies, is that we are a flat fee real estate company. In a sense, if you look at most of our public peers, for the most part, they charge a percentage of the commission for the agent, and we charge a flat fee in terms of what we collect for the agent. So we are a different animal, if you will, when you look compares us against other real estate companies. We do own an entire technology stack, and so we're not depending on any other company. I previously, before joining Fathom in 2012, I ran 3 software companies, and so we decided very early on that we needed to own our own destiny, if you will, and so we built our entire technology stack. Now, what makes our technology unique, and I'll talk a little bit more in a couple slides, is that our technology is focused on creating a much more efficient process. Because we charge less than our competitors, in order to be a profitable company, our costs have to be less. And so the technology we have is really focused on maximizing the profitability of the business or minimizing the cost in doing a transaction. Okay, we're very asset light. We do own a mortgage company, title company, and insurance company, and so we can monetize the transaction across the board. We do not hold paper, so we don't take any paper risk in our mortgage company. By the time we close a mortgage with one of our clients, that mortgage is sold to someone else. And it's one of the questions we get a lot is we take a paper risk, and we don't take paper risk. As you can see from the map, our real estate company is in about 41, 42 states. We'll be in all 50 states by the end of the year. For most of the states that are left, to be transparent, not a lot of transactions happen in those states, right? And we are a transaction company. But we'll be in all 50 states, and next year we'll probably be in Canada as well. Our mortgage company is licensed in almost the entire country, as well as insurance. And then Verus, which is our title business, is also licensed in about half of the country. And by the end of the year, early next year, it will be licensed in most states. There's some states that we will not be able to get a license. It's either cost prohibitive or the government runs the title business, but we'll be in most states. In terms of growth, as you can imagine, the real estate industry has gone through significant change in the last few years, mostly related to interest rates, right? Interest rates have increased significantly. And, we're just having this conversation that, 6-7% interest rates, if you look at the next, 30 years, is actually the average. But what's happening in the industry is that, especially younger buyers, when they experience 2-3% mortgages, they're having a hard time accepting 6-7% mortgages. I remember when I bought my first house, I think I was 18 or 19, and I think I was paying 14%. And so, 6 or 7% is really the average. But in reality, what's happening in the market right now, it's going to take another year or so to people adjust. It's happening already. People are beginning to just accept that 6-7% interest rates is really the norm, and I think that's what's coming back to the market. So certainly 2023 was a very difficult year for the industry, but we think that by this year things will normalize, and by 2025, as interest rates will come down, which will probably come down a bit in 2025, the market will do better. Now, when you look us against our peers, we actually have done better than our peers, and in part is because of our model. Our model does attract more agents, number one, and second, because of our cost structure. And we're able to adapt to the change in the market much faster than I think our competitors, in part because we don't have office space. We're a virtual company. And so most of our competitors have very large office spaces, and, those are long-term leases. And the world after COVID, as you all probably know, have seen it, people have adjusted to working virtual, right? And so that is one of the benefits of our models, that we are a virtual company as well. So this, specifically explains how our model works. We charge a $550 flat fee for per transaction, and then we charge an annual subscription for an agent for $700. So, the typical agent out there working for one of the legacy companies is typically paying 20 to 30%. So if you think about a transaction and the total commission is going to be around, $11,000, $12,000, an agent for us is paying $550, and then working for a brokerage that's charging 30% is paying over almost $3,500. So you can see the difference in savings in terms of an agent working for us. The 100% commission model, and that name is just given from the industry itself, collectively is the fastest growing model in this industry. Now, it is hard to identify that because it's incredibly fragmented. Right? When you look at the top 10 to 15 companies in the country, 3 of them are 100% commission. But it's highly fragmented. There are thousands and thousands of small 100% commission brokerages out there. But when you see the change and increase in that industry, it is the fastest growing segment in the industry. That market, that model is actually gaining agents from the traditional models. And I think over time, that is going to become more significant. There's going to be some consolidation. That's one of the things that we see in the market. What's going to happen in 2024, 2025, and beyond, there's going to be a great deal of consolidation. And there's several companies that are getting very aggressive in terms of acquiring, so there's some opportunity for that as well. We do have one of the things that we are unique is that we're very aggressive in recruiting. We have a recruiting staff about 35 to 40 people, and we offer a significant incentive for recruiting in terms of stock grants. An agent can also cap for life. Capping for life is when an agent hits 15 transactions a year, they're capped. So they go from $550 to $150. If an agent recruits 4 agents to us who are producing agents, then they'll be capped for life. And then we also have a program free for life if an agent recruits 8 agents. So we're basically making a trade-off from 1 agent free for they bring us 8 agents. I think if you do the math, you can see that's actually very favorable to us. Break even, we break even basically in the first transaction. So our cost of acquisition, which is roughly around $1,100, right? We basically break even the first transaction. So we get very aggressive in terms of recruiting agents. We have, like I said, a significant team recruiting agents across the country. And if you look at agent growth, there's only probably 2 or 3 companies that continue to add agents. And we are certainly one of them. The other thing that makes us unique is our turnover is very low. As you can imagine, real estate agents are 1099, right? So there's massive turnover in the agents. Historically, between 20 and 25% of agents turn over every year. Okay, the average turnover for a real estate company out there is around 3 to 3.5%. We've been averaging 1.8%. But more importantly, the kind of agent that leaves Fathom is a very low producing agent. And so in a sense, there's a sort of rate of substitution that we like to call. We are bringing in agents doing 5 or 6 transactions, and we're losing agents doing 1 or 2 transactions, right? And that's what's happening in our world when we look at turnover. So where we definitely pay attention to turnover, we actually are more focused on the quality of turnover, right? How many low-producing agents we're losing versus high-producing agents, and why we lose high-producing agents versus that. As I said earlier, we built our own technology. It's called intelliAgent. It manages the entire process of an agent working at Fathom, as well as the entire process of life of a transaction. It goes all the way from the onboarding the agent to creating a transaction, managing the entire process of the transaction, to sending out what's called the CDA, paying the agent, 1099, integration with accounting, integration with social media. It took us 4 years to build it. We invested $15 million. And what that technology does is several things. One, allows us to run the business at a much lower cost, right? And that is significant given that we're charging a lot less than our competition. Second, it reduces the time an agent spends working on a transaction. On average, an agent will spend 4 to 5 hours less per transaction in terms of working with the transaction, getting their documents, having access to their documents. We have business intelligence, we have dashboarding, reports, all of that. And so it reduces the time an agent spends just managing their business. Because at the end of the day, a real estate agent is his own LLC, right? They're independent contractors. They're running their own little business. In some cases, they're very large teams. We also have teams. Our biggest team has 120 agents. And so that person that runs the team is running a business with 120 people, right? So our technology allows them to run their business much more efficiently, right? At the same time, it allows us to reduce our expenses to run the business. And that's one of the things that makes us very unique. Our gross profit per transaction is significant. And over time, we'll be able to demonstrate in our model that when in Q2 of last year, we were adjusted EBITDA break even. This is before interest rates increased significantly. And if you go back and take a look at our Q1 versus Q2 of last year, and you see the increase in gross profit, you see that our model, 60% of the increase in gross profit went to the bottom line. That is significant if you just think about the scale of the business. So we were able to demonstrate the operational leverage of the business last year. Then, of course, interest rates increased significantly and affected the business. We are looking forward to this year between Q1 and Q2, showing the exact same thing, showing that once we hit adjusted EBITDA in Q2 and you look at the change in gross profit, you see that at least 60% of the increase in gross profit will fall to the bottom line. And that makes our business incredibly valuable as we continue to increase the business. This is a hypothetical model. Last year we did about 38,000 transactions. This model shows and really models what would happen to the business at 100,000 closes. At 100,000 closings a year, which we think we can get there in a couple of years, this business will generate $40 million in EBITDA. Again, that is just the operational leverage of really our technology and our model and how we run the business. And so we certainly look forward to being able to execute this in the next couple of years and being able to have EBITDA of about $40 million for every 100,000 closes. Now, keep in mind, the real estate industry this year will probably close, the forecast indicate, around 4 million transactions. Every transaction has two sides, a buyer and a seller, although they're FSBOs, which are people selling their own house. But when you look at total sides that are closed by real estate companies, it's around 7 million sides. In this model, we're talking about 100,000. So it's a very, very small percentage of the business. And so one of the things that Fathom has is incredible run rate ahead of us in terms of potential growth in the business. Imagine what we can do when we're doing 300, 400,000 sites. This is a brief overview of our P&L. Clearly, last year was a difficult year in terms of losses. Our losses increased significantly last year to $23 million. And then adjusted EBITDA, which really, in a sense, is really cash flow for the most part. We lost $4 million last year. This year, we're projecting that we'll be adjusted EBITDA positive and probably generating about $2 million. So it will be a turning point for the company in terms of reaching adjusted EBITDA and then being a profitable company. And again, we were in this process last year, right? Q2 of last year, we were adjusted EBITDA positive, and we were projecting that we would be adjusted EBITDA positive for the whole year. And then again, unfortunately, interest rates, the significant, and the issue with the interest rates, not that they increase, is how quickly they increase, right? It was the shock to the industry. They moved so quickly that just created enormous shock. And it just takes time for people to adjust to that. And as I said earlier, the market is beginning to adjust to that. And people are really getting their heads around that. Again, 6 or 7% is a normal interest rate. And so the market is coming back. So we look forward for this year to hitting adjusted EBITDA positive and then continue to grow in our business. We have a great board. Josh Harley founded the company in 2010. He served our country as a Marine for 8 years and then started a real estate company. He really started the company because he was working for one of the legacy companies, and he had a pretty big team. And at some point, he realized, why am I paying this company 30% of my money? And so he decided to open Fathom. And he opened Fathom really for himself. And then all of a sudden, within 6 months, he had 100 agents, and then realized, I may have something here. I met Josh in 2012. I've started 9 companies in my life. I guess my wife likes to say it's that itch you can't scratch, in a sense that I'm just a serial entrepreneur. I met him, and I've always thought that his model is an interesting model in the industry, and partly because I worked the real estate agent most of my life, and I really didn't care who she worked for. And all I care is that I like working with her. So if she worked for a legacy brand or she worked for somebody else, I just didn't care, right? And so why are legacy brands charging 20 or 30%? And, for most of the time, they're charging that because of their name. And honestly, their name is irrelevant. It's really about the service. And so I joined the company in 2012. We had 100 agents when I joined the company. We now have close to 12,000. And our goal is to get to about 50,000 agents. Samantha and Scott have been working with me for about 25 years in different companies. I think one of the things I'm very blessed is as I move from company to company, people tend to follow me. So there's probably something there. And Joanna is the Senior VP of Finance. So we have a really great management team across the company, very experienced. And, we continue to add people as we continue to grow the business. So with that, and again, we have a great board. I'll highlight two people. Steve Murray is probably one of the most knowledgeable individuals in the real estate industry. He's been in the industry for 40 years. He ran several consulting companies. He probably has done over 400 M&As in the industry. He's an analyst. When he retired last year, we knew him. He was running a company. We invited him, and basically every company has invited him to join their board in this industry. And the reason he joined us is, I think, for two reasons, and he will probably speak to that. One, our values in our company, which are really important to us. And second, he feels that this model is the future. He really believes that this model is over time is going to become the prevailing leading model. And he wanted to be part of a 100% commission company. And he felt that Josh and I provided the same, values as he had. And so it's been a great asset to our company. And Scott Flanders has a long career running, public companies, several public companies, and great deal of connections and experience in running a public company. So we do have a very diverse board who really helps us run the business. And honestly, this is my second public company. And for those who run public companies, know the boards can be a great asset, but sometimes they cannot. And then for us, it is a great asset. So with that, I'll stop and answer any questions you may have. I try to go as quickly as I can, given the time, but I'll be more than glad to answer any questions. Yes, sir. Yep. Yep.
But they must still be losing something. I saw in your investment application you highlighted, there might be a misperception about how important that big brand name is in terms of clients selecting it, but they have to be losing something or giving up something, or they put a lot more in your model.
Yep, office space. We don't have office space. We don't pay for office space for them to come and hang out. It's fairly standard, yes. It is changing. After COVID, a lot of companies are beginning to get rid of office space. But office space is significant. If we always do interviews with agents that join us and even agents that leave us. And often they would say that they actually lost very little. The only thing they probably lost is office space. And basically hanging out with other agents, which, we do have opportunities for agents to come together. I would actually say we have many agents that have said to us that actually we provide more opportunity to come together. And part of it because we feel we understand that issue, like we think about that more consciously, that we need to be able to have opportunities for them to come together because we don't have office space. But with the exception of a few states that we have to have a little bigger office space, most of our, in Dallas, we have 2,400 agents. We don't have a single office space, not even a little closet, nothing. And agents get together all the time. That's probably the biggest thing. I think there's a misconception that the brand is going to bring you business. And there's probably a few exceptions with that. And I'll give you an interesting story. 2-3 years ago, I had somebody else recruiting, a very high-producing agent, and she was with one of the legacy brands. And she was concerned about that. My clients are going to leave me if I go to Fathom. Nobody knows who Fathom is, right? I said, sure. I'll tell you what. Why don't you send an email to all your clients, take out your signature, ask them 2 questions. What company do I work for? And if I decide to move companies, would you stay with me? The majority of the people thought she worked for herself, that her company was her. They didn't even know who she worked for. They didn't know what brand it was. And I said, of course we're going to work with you. We've been working with you forever. It's a misconception that was created by, if you are one of the legacy brands, that's what you create. You create that you need our brand in order to be successful. But you don't. You don't need that brand. You don't need Fathom brand. Real estate agents are their own brands, right? And we teach them. You need to market. As in fact, we allow, and we're not the only ones, many companies do that, allow the brand to the agent to brand themselves. They should be branding themselves. They are their brand, right? And we actually not only incentivize, we motivate to do that. That's important. That's how they become more successful. And by the way, if they are more successful, we are more successful, right? And so we're symbiotic in that. But I think it's a misconception that because we are called 100% commission, it's not a term that we created, by the way. It's a term that's being applied in the industry, that somehow you lose something. And it's a fair question. I went from paying $2,000 a transaction to $550. What's the catch, right? It's got to be a catch. Well, what was the catch when people was paying $50 to trade stocks and now they're paying nothing? It's a paradigm shift. What was the catch when you went to Blockbuster and rented and paid, $8-9 to rent a movie, and now is $20 a month and you get everything you want? It's a paradigm shift. The world moves and changes all the time, and so that's really it. And it's just a matter of people understanding that. Please. No, it's almost there. So adjusted EBITDA for us is almost cash flow, the exception of a few things like capital expenditures, because we're running our own technology. We're spending about $2 million a year between CapEx and some other things. But so our cost is about $2 million a year. Nope, that's it. Yep. I'm sorry? We will be free cash flow this year. So then we get into a lot of specifics, but because we have some losses to carry forward and all that, it's going to take some time. Yeah. We have carried forward losses, right, from previous years. So yeah, they're going to last for a while. Yeah, that's just the reality. So we'll be free cash flow. We believe we'll be free cash flow this year, and certainly next year. Yeah. Okay. Great question. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What prohibits your competition?
Intestinal fortitude. When you're running a big business, very hard to change your model. One of my favorite books is Andy Grove, Only the Paranoid Survive. And Andy Grove, who built Intel, he says, you either reinvent yourself or someone's going to reinvent you out of business. Pick one. But that's easy. Those are easy words to write. They're very hard words to implement. When you have if you look at the legacy brands, a lot of them have franchises. How do you change the franchise model when franchises are making money from the 20 or 30%, right? I mean, you basically have to blow up your model. How does Blockbuster compete with Netflix when Blockbuster has, hundreds of buildings and all that, and Netflix is it's very difficult. The reality of business, if you study business over time, some models actually die. It's just the reality, right? Or you have to reinvent yourself, right? And so and I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's very difficult. It's not an easy thing to do when you built a model that works on charging, a much higher transaction fee, if you will. And now you have to adjust the entire cost structure, and you have to adjust your franchises are your partners. How do you explain that to them? So it's a very difficult thing. It's not an easy. I don't even their positions. It's a really very difficult thing. So I have not seen any company successfully do that. A couple have tried and failed. That doesn't mean that's not possible. I'm not sure I would know how to do it, to be 100% honest. It's a very difficult position. When models are built and companies have, built to a certain size, to reinvent yourself, it's very painful. There are, examples of that. Apple Computer, when Steve Jobs was a great example of creating different divisions in the company, let them compete with each other and basically put each other out of business. That's a painful process. And it takes a certain level in your culture. And so I think it would be very difficult. I think what's going to happen, honestly, some of those brands are going to disappear. And new brands like us, and there'll be many others, that will come out and grow. And it's just the evolution of business, right? Yes, sir. Yep. So we implemented this about a year ago. So this is fairly new still. Roughly 40% of our growth every month comes from agent referrals. So it's significant. Before we implemented this, it was about 25%. Now we're up to 40%. Okay, and so it's significantly increasing. Roughly every month we have hundreds of agents that refer other agents, right? So when you're looking at now we're looking at the different levels. So certainly level 1 is everybody that refers an agent, right? By level 2, I think we're about 2 to 3% of the agents that refer, right? And then by level 3, I think we only had about 3 or 4 agents. It's very hard to get to level 3, right? But it really is about level 1 and level 2, right? That's what it's built for. So it's been very successful to us. Yes. I think we'll have a couple minutes left, right? 2 minutes left. Last question if there is one. No questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.